Today it's a cold day, it was a -3 frost overnight. There's a good flow on the river, it's flowing nice and green. So we stand a chance, albeit that the fish will be quite chilly. I propose to tackle the river today using heavy trotting tactics, which are my favourite. And here I have one of my favourite old reels. It's an old speedia from the 50s or the 60s. It's seen many hundreds of thousands of miles service, and a 15-foot rod to which we'll attach some heavy trotting gear that I'll show you later. A lot of my fishing sessions are very short, and for that reason I keep all of my rods ready rigged up so that I'm not wasting time setting them up. For this happens to be a 15-foot rod. I use these rod bands made by my better half. They're the best available, and all they are is 2 lots of Velcro and some ripstop nylon. I take the 3 rod bands off, and there we are, I'm ready to fish in a few seconds. Well, this is the swim I've chosen today. The river's been spating for the last couple of weeks. It's just dropping down, and now where the current comes off the bend, it starts to kick across to the other side of the river, leaving some nice slack water this side. But the really interesting feature is this little bit of upwelling water that is the crease between the two. Now normally roach don't like upwelling water very much, but this particular upwell just happens to be the mix between the faster and the relatively static water. I think, given that it's cold and given that, that the river's been very fast, the fish will be pretty much in this zone. As I've set up, I've been feeding a little handful of bread every minute or so into the top of the crease, and that should be eking down there, getting our fish interested. I know from experience the depth of this swim. I always hook the hook to the same part of the rod so that when I slide the float up, I can mark it against the rings of exactly the depth that it's at, and that lets me adjust the depth and know exactly how deep I am at any one time. So we start by putting a bit of bread on the hook like that, a little handful of bread into the top of the slack, and just lowering that down. No need for any big casts because the current will do the job for us. And there we have a fish. First chuck. It's a chub, and it's very nearly in the roots already. If you lower the tip into the water, you can often just wind them back to the rod tip. And then when you think you've got them under control, then you can begin to play them as normal. This fish has got a lot of energy in it. It's taking line off me again, so he's not ready. But you see, I've wound him right back to the rod tip. So I'm in control of this fight, even though he could smash me at a moment's notice if he wanted. And there it is. Our first chub of the day. Let's see if there's anything with red fins in there now. Okay, I'm going to put another bit of bread on the hook. Always helps to fish with bait. And another handful of bread in the river at the head of the crease here. Basically, as I'm setting up, I'm just keeping a little handful going every minute or so, every 30 seconds or so. Not too much, but just to get a trickle of feed down to stimulate the fish to feed. With this type of trotting, you have to remember that the surface of the river is moving very quickly, but down at the bed it's very slow, sometimes even relatively static. So what you have to do is to have a big float that you can control, a bulk weight, I use masonry nails, and a dropper shot, so that when you drop the bait in the river, you can hold back the float hard against the current. It might look unnatural from the surface, but underneath, what you're doing is walking the bait through at the same pace as a slow water at depth. I'm controlling it by just gently touching the edge of the centrepin with my thumb. Got a fish. Not a huge one, but very welcome on a cold day. And it's a roach, and I think it's a fish we'll take the net to. And there it is, a roach, one of nature's most gorgeous creatures. And there's another fish. And we have another chub. This is the business end. This is a size 12 crystal bend, relatively fine wired, micro barbed, spade end hooked. Spade because that's a lot lighter than an eyed hook, and that's important because we want the bait to behave naturally. I hook the bread there, put it through, bring it back, tiny little pinch on the spade. The hook is whipped to maybe a foot or so of finer line. This is about 2 pounds. And then we get to the real line. This is 3 pound with a BB dropper shot. You match anglers out there, that's horrendously heavy, but we need that to bounce the bait across the river bed. Above that, another foot or so, is my little piece of magic here. This is a black painted masonry nail with float rubbers top and bottom and just a slightly bigger shot to balance it pretty much exactly against the float. Been using these about 20 years. They're better than anything out there. Big shot tend to work against each other and weaken the line. And then the next piece up the line is the float itself. You can use a loafer type of float, a chubber type of float, or an layeden type of float. These are a bolognese type of float. I find them very good for cutting through heavy water. They've got a big long tip on them, so if there's a chop on the water, like on the Y or something like that, you can see them very well. Often the chubber loafer type, you can lose that tip in the chop. And there it is, a bit of catapult rubber at the top, a bit of rig tube at the bottom, so I can change the float and change the bulk weight to match it at any time without breaking down the tackle. We've got the bread on. We'll put another little handful of bread in the river and we'll simply lower the float to follow the bread down, holding it back. People often say it must be really slow to retrieve on the centrepin, and if you want to retrieve like that, they're absolutely right, but there's no need to. What you can do instead is to sweep in the rod like that. It's a 15-foot rod, that's 30 foot of line, and then you flick the reel as you bring the rod back. So that's 30 foot of line per sweep. And if you do it nice and rhythmically, that's as fast as any fixed spool. And we've got another roach by the look of it. Excellent. Isn't it lovely?